and what that was or what that looked like. And we tried to make sure that we gave coaches something familiar to look at so that they would then offer our players, and we could kick the ball higher and further. But if it looked a little weird, it was sometimes a longer drawn out conversation just to get the deal done, because it was a bit foreign to the eye. And so then over the years, we basically just started to bring in a bit of a hybrid of style. It didn't have to be the straight leg, didn't necessarily have to be the pointed toe. The knee was a bit more bent, and it was probably a little bit more fluent towards what Australians do growing up, but it certainly also gave the results and the consistency from a technical spiral point of view. And so that's where we've sort of come from. But we just see, I guess over the years, I've been at some places watching Mitch Wisniewski in his draft year. And I was at practice watching him at Utah, and he just so happened to have a couple of scouts from an NFL team come by and watch. And I actually asked them, so what do you see? What are you seeing? How does he look? And they said, well, we've never really kicked a ball before. We were told to come out and have a look. So all I can really evaluate it on is distance and hang time. And so it's sort of really, in its sense, is frustrating in a way to think that, NFL scouts might, or NFL teams might have that type of structure towards their recruiting. But if they don't get the right people, then they might miss out on getting some real talent, which I felt like could have potentially happened with Cameron Johnson, which could have happened with Mitch. And so I think as Michael Dixon then came onto the scene and showed that sometimes a little bit different is okay, and people might scratch their head and go, I don't know how he does it. It doesn't drive his leg up, his knee's bent. There's no real method to the madness. He's also a very, very damn good punter, and he spends a lot of time on his craft. So as a collective, how do we help you? How do we help others start to understand what you're looking at, and then how to evaluate it, how to evaluate what's coming through? Because I'm looking at the list this year, and we would say that Max Duffy does things a little different, and he's damn effective towards it. And you look at James Smith at Cincinnati and Oscar Bradburn at Virginia Tech. They're all slightly different and bring different attributes to the punting game. But I guess everyone from a recruiting point of view is going to have a different view on what they see and what they feel comfortable with, and then what potentially they put on paper to evaluate and send to a head coach or a general manager about why we shouldn't do something. So if I can help you understand and get into your heads and say, hey, what do you see? What do you see from an Australian punter? What are your fears? What are some things you'd like to see? And then I could probably say from the inner sanctum, from what we do and what we get told to do, we can probably bridge that gap so that you as coaches get a chance to potentially open up Pandora's box as to what can be done. What is different in the NFL? What are in the rules? And there's some different rules there. But funnily enough, from my point of view, and it's not a biased point of view, some questions that I hear come up about we've only got 2 gunners that go down and not everyone on the line can move. And some answers and some questions are yes, but if you've got a very skillful guy who can put the ball where he needs to, or potentially put it out of bounds by 2 yards, shouldn't we use that as an option? And the returners are getting pretty busy, and they continue to get better. How do we keep the ball away from them? So I'd love to open up that discussion and say, and Coach Matsakis is a case of Max Duffy, is you probably didn't know what you got And then he gets there and he lights it up and it looks a little unique. And sometimes you just got to say, fuck it. You know what? I've never kicked the ball. You just do you. I don't know how you do it, but you just keep doing that and we're all good and we all stay in a job. But how do we get other coaches on board? So,
yeah, Chappie, that's a good intro. I think, big picture, I didn't want this to be a lecture. We've got a whole glut of knowledge here. And from the beginning, Paul and I talked and said, we represent enough special teams coaches. Does it provide any value to them to get another perspective? So I appreciate that. That said, like Louis, any of the coaches, Chris, you and I had a good conversation the other day about just pluses, minuses, things to consider. What's the future look like? Nobody knows that. But any of you or all of you are welcome to chime in on any of these things, specific issues or even new issues that we haven't talked about, just kind of some of the talking points I sent out.
Got
Louis,
one,
maybe you
Bake,
can
actually.
talk about, yeah, Paul, go ahead.
So Chappie, let's take a step back before you get into what they could do, for these coaches on the field. How do you evaluate these guys? Like, what would a workout look like for an NFL special teams coach to work out one of your guys to really understand what he could bring to the table, what kind of clubs he has in the bag? How would that workout differ than, maybe one of the NFL guys could talk about how they would normally do a traditional punter workout, because I'm sure it would be different. And if they did a traditional punter workout with one of the Aussies, they'd be missing out on a whole lot of things that these guys could do. So what would a workout look like for one of your guys?
Yeah, I think it technically just stays the same from let's do the big ball. Let's do, sometimes bigger is better, and a good big one will always beat a good little one. And so if you do the big ball open field punt, let's go. We've got to have everything. And I guess what we're trying to say is, I think there's a real new breed of ability in the punter, and I think there's so much more scope for creativity that teams will really get an edge. So if you sort of add, okay, big ball down the middle, show us your big ball, great. 5+ seconds, 50 yards, brilliant. Let's go directional right, directional left. We all love to see it when they've got good control over the ball. Jeff Fiegel's brilliant. Shows that you don't need to have the biggest kick, but if you keep putting it deep on the sideline, it's pretty hard to return. But then we'll have a going in kick. We want to put that, what used to be the inside 20 is now probably the inside 10, potentially inside 5. And so I think we're pushing the boundary. So if we had those similar kicks, brilliant. But I think where it sort of falls down again is, and I think they get a chance to do it a little bit more on pro days where things are outdoors, but let's talk about the NFL Combine to start. If you then, let's say we've done our 5 down the middle, 3 to the right, 3 to the left, 5 going in kicks. Well, there's your NFL Combine workout. If you then start talking about, okay, misdirection kicks, aim your body to the right, do a 2-step kick from the pocket, but again, misdirection, you're going to aim to the right sideline, but you're going to put it on the left sideline. Would you like to see, for a right-footed punter, aim like they're going to kick left, catch the ball, and within 1 step have changed his body angle and kick it to the right? You can do it from the left, so you can aim to the right and hook your foot to the left. You can, there's so many different things. You could potentially face the sideline sideways. Here we're kicking down the field. I could stand sideways, turn here, wait for the ball to be snapped, catch it, face back to the sideline, and still kick a 40-yard ball. And I guess what we're trying to say is some extra things that you could do in those workouts are, how bad is a bad snap drill? At what angles can we get out of trouble? From an Australian's point of view, our instinct is a game comes from a game, and if you had a chance to have a look at any of those videos, what you'll see is an instinctive 360-degree game where your peripheral awareness has to be paramount. And so what it allows an Australian to do is, and ironically, I work with a professional Australian rules football team. I work actually with a women's football team, who I could tell you, I would almost have some women in my punting program over some of the men. They can kick. I'm actually the elite men are out there training at the moment. But if you saw their ability to draw a player, but still understand when and how and what angle they can get the ball off in, and how they can still manipulate the ball in their hands to create a different trajectory on the ball, but still get it to the sideline. It could bend right to left down the sideline. You could kick it, bend left to right down the sideline. And that could be through 2, 3, 4 different scenarios that may have happened. And so in that workout, that's probably where I'd say, hey, what else can you do? How can you get yourself out of trouble? How can you kick this with your left foot? If you get a bad snap out to the left, or the ball hits the deck and it's raining, and you pick the ball up and kick it on your left foot, to still what? If we get 30 yards out of it, great. So I think that then encompasses what type of athlete we've got, what type of instinctive process they've got, so that, and if we had seen, and it's great that, it's great that you represent Max here, but that play that Max did a few weeks ago, where he shaked and shimmy and sold the candy and
in the bowl game
and held onto the ball, saw what was coming. That's an instinctive thing. That's not a preset plan. That's just shit. Actually, this guy's coming. He's going to get in the way. And we've seen some US guys do it too. I guess what we're saying is we're trying to show that that's actually our natural instinct, and how do we develop it to become a weapon and a strength, and then reduces potential to get blocked. Because if I go back, some things that we've always tried to do is, if a coach says take a 2 steps and do a spiral, you do it no matter what. And in the past, it's potentially been, well, if it's over 1.3 seconds, well, it's not your fault. Well, how about if we see and feel the rush and the pressure, that we do something about it to still get that kick away? And that's probably, so just adding a few more kicks onto that to show you what the athlete can do instinctively is probably what I'd add to that, Paul.
So I'm going to add something to that. When our first Aussie that we worked with was T-Mac. It was your guy. It was Brad Wing. And when I'm here, and I was the ignorant, never saw all those clubs in the bag, wasn't sure what he could do. In my mind, all the things that, Chappie, that you were describing, they're almost gimmicky for me back then. And I'm talking to his dad, and his dad says, no, they're not gimmicky. This is what these guys do. Like, you have to understand, this is just what they do. It's gimmicky to you because you've got these American punters who traditional, hang time, turn the ball over and you're happy, because this is what they do. So I think that was a big eye opener for me on how I started to look at things differently, that I was really closed-minded and thinking all that other stuff that you described, those are all gimmicky. Face this way, punt that way. You know what? That's just what they do. And I think that adds a lot of value to guys who are looking for something different and always trying to get ahead of the game, ahead of the curve.
Yeah. And I think,
go ahead.
I'm sorry. Thanks, Chris.
I agree with Paul. I'm kind of going off Paul's deal there, because obviously in Chicago, shitty weather on the lake, and I'm into how many clubs do you have and how many clubs can we keep developing as we go. So 2 questions is part, most Australians, because I'm not familiar with the rugby game. My girls play soccer, so obviously they have a dominant foot, but they can hit the ball well with both feet. Do Australian players, is it the same? I know they have the dominant foot, but are some of them just as good with the other foot also?
Absolutely. Yeah. They are. And it'll vary.
Not tapped into?
Sorry?
Is that something that's not tapped into? Like, like Cole quit when I was in Cleveland, and he was just he hits the normal ball, but he would warm up to keep himself aligned. He would warm up hitting left-footed, and we had it, and we could only do it indoors, but we were going to show one way and then kick the ball with his left foot because he was really good at it, as opposed to just the stereotype, right-footed and go to work. Is it natural for those kids to do that? Or is that just kind of once in a while deal that a guy comes along and can be effective with both feet kicking the ball?
Yeah, it'll be quite individual as to about how good they are at it and how much they get a chance to practice it. And again, at the top level, you walk into the NFL and kick it on the other foot and it doesn't pay off.
Yeah, it's a bad deal.
It can come across as not being very effective, and what are we doing there? So there are different levels of it and abilities to be able to consistently do what's required from a spiral point of view. But if you talk about a backwards spinning kick,
I'm actually talking backwards spinning kick. I'm not talking the spiral with the left.
Yeah, backwards spinning kick. Then you'd expect all of the guys that go up from that college and have the skill set and power that you're going to consistently get. I'm going to say you're consistently going to get 35 yards plus, again from a lower range, 35 plus. But if you'd be hitting a 42-yard ball on the opposite foot, you'll get further. But I'm trying to talk on averages here, that a good common kick would be 42 yards. Absolutely. Potentially not with the hang time that you might get with the dominant foot, but in terms of location and accuracy, then yeah, absolutely.
But you could, because I mean, you could hit that ball and then it gets on the ground and gets that roll. I mean, to me, that's a bunch of net. My other question I had for you as you were kind of going through the workout deal, and now that we're starting to see some guys in the league. I mean, they're kind of, hey, I can compare them to Wisnowski and all those guys. You kind of start getting some comparisons, but when you do a workout, like how a good player, a good Aussie punter, how many clubs should he have in his bag? You know what I mean? I know the better you are, you're going to hopefully have some more. But I mean, do you think that this guy should have at least this many clubs in his bag?
Yeah, I'd be sort of saying that as long as you've got a real good stock of, I believe there's probably two at top end. I'm going to try and word this a little different. With an outdoor, there's obviously the relationship between the coach and the punter as to determine which kick to use. And the wind condition can feel different on the sideline, and as to when you get out there, it feels a little weird. And I think if the trust is there to say, hey, we're going to do a spiral, but if you get out there and something happens, we need to know that the skill set they've got is to go, I don't need to hit that spiral now because the wind's blowing a touch right to left. I need to change the angle. I don't need to change the protection as such, but I need to be able to do a different kick with the same protection, but be more consistent. And that might be, if you want 43 yards, fair court outside the numbers, and we're going for a spiral, then all of a sudden that could turn into, hey, that wind's picked up and I've got to be able to, okay, it's gone from a spiral, right? It's gone from a two-step pocket, backward spinning kick with good height, just like the spiral, almost like a going in kick. But then if that wind's picked up and it's got really swirly, then being able to utilize the wind, kick it, don't go as far with your steps, and kick it just as low and use the wind to hold the ball up. But maybe potentially, rather than put it outside the numbers, put it on the sideline because it's been a little tricky, but your trajectory is going to have to be lower. You'd probably want it to go out of bounds because we don't want hang time because they've only got 20 yards to run to the sideline. So we don't want 4.5 seconds of hang time or 4 seconds. We need it like 3 seconds and dart it out just to pierce the wind. So if we talk about one kick, we've potentially got 3 different directional kicks, let alone potentially putting it on the deck and keeping it really low, dropping it at 30 yards and letting it roll 15. So for one kick, you've probably got 4 kicks. If you want to go right, you've got again a different scenario. So there's 4 kicks with one outcome. So you're probably thinking there's probably 10 different ways to be able to go anywhere you need to on the field. Going in, you've got 3 different kicks straight away. Backwards spinning, you've got the one that spins sideways and you hold it and it bounces on the 2 and bounces sideways but doesn't bounce forward. If you want them to try and drop it, you can obviously do that knuckleball. You could also do the spiral that comes down on its backside. So you can be quite creative. And I guess, again, if you had a chance to watch that film, one of the links we saw, I presented there with kicking at what we call kicking at our goal. You'd see that these crazy fuckers would just go left, right, bend it whichever way they wanted, depending on the angle of their body. So if you add a type of kick and the ball hits the ground, then you've added the 5th kick because you've had to pick it up, turn sideways and curl it from facing the sideline. So yeah, I think there's potentially 10 or 12 stock balls, and then you've got the crazy mayhem balls, and that could be anywhere. That could be left foot, kick it really high. You might be running away and be able to face running away from where you got to go and still be able to bend it and kick it over your head and still get 30 yards out of it. So yeah, let's say 12 to 13 stock kicks and then a multitude of get out of trouble kicks, which are still effective and potentially not scary.
And Chappie, you would expect most Aussie guys to come that make it through the deal and have a chance to punt in the NFL to have most of those kicks in their arsenal.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's that.
Go ahead.
Sorry. I was just saying, like when Michael Dixon did a drop kick and people thought it was crazy. It was like, yeah, okay.
Are we not asking enough of our punters? Is that what I'm hearing? Like we really should be asking more of them, especially these guys with these tools, to really take advantage of what they have to bring to the table.
Yeah, I mean, and college is an interesting one because they set, if you're really good, they'll set 2 returners back there, and it becomes a game of, okay, well, if I keep this away from the returner and then you decide to put 2 returners back and offset them, great. You know what? I'll take my medicine. I'll just take 42 yards fair court. You can catch it and stay back there for as long as you want. We'll take 42 net all day. But what it does do, and this is what we're trying to do, is we're trying to build what is now the athlete. Well, if you take one off the line, then you're then actually coming right into our pause and grasp of, hey, our instinctive game is to run around people and to have bodies moving and to be congested. Again, on our particular field, we've got 18 per team on the field at any one time. So we too can have 20 bodies around the football. So we understand that awareness. So if you want to put 2 back and then you trust us as the athlete to run, what we potentially do is we have to follow the American format of, okay, we've got to run on this angle and it's there and it's quite set. Whereas in fact, sometimes our instinct might be to zig and zag, and it's got the 2 have got to match. We can't go rogue in there because we can't have you blocking out and we run inside. That doesn't work. We understand that, but it's not foreign to us to do it.
Louis, maybe you can talk a little bit about that, just because you've recently had Max and you and I talked, and a lot of it was just giving him the freedom to say, hey, is it there? Is it not? Now that's uncomfortable for a whole lot of coaches, and especially a whole lot of head coaches who don't maybe want to call a fake when a coach really wants to call a fake. But you guys wouldn't do that. I know that. But Louis, you gave Max, and I'm sure a lot of those guys have a lot of freedom to make their own decisions because they have that instinct. Whereas an American guy might just be prone to, hey, catch the ball, drop the ball, punt the ball.
Yeah, we did a lot of that with Max just because we started getting a lot of 2 returner looks. So technically we had everyone blocked. And we gave him certain parameters of, hey, if the ball's inside our own 25, just live with it, get us the net that we want, kick it away from this guy. Once the ball's between the 25 and the 50, you see 2 deep. Well, hold the ball longer. If you can finagle your way through and get us a first down, go right ahead. And that was 2 years ago against Missouri that happened. Missouri's game plan was put 2 deep. After we were kind of backed up, he looks, he's like, Coach, I can get about 20 yards. I was like, well, if it's there, take it. And then the very next snap, he catches it, acts like he's going to do a little half roll, shows the ball, the guy goes outside, and we block him out. He takes off and gets about a 30-yard run right down our sidelines, and we never got 2 returners again the rest of the year. But a lot of that, and a lot of the kicks that like Chappie was talking about, we changed and evolved our protection, honestly, watching Max warm up, like in pregame. I mean, he could kick a ball to a guy, like our GA was running down the sidelines, 40 yards on a rope, and hit him in stride more times than our quarterbacks completed a fade and pat and go. And it was like impressive. So we created a protection for punt safe. And we said, okay, Max, when the defense is on the field, we're going to call safe. The line, no one's going downfield. You guys are going to block the 4D linemen, hold the ball as long as you can. At some point, they're going to let the gunners go. When they're down inside the 5, you just pass it to the dude. He's like, all right, that's easy. Missouri 2018, he had a 3.9 operation. Line drived it to our gunner on the 5. He caught it like a pass, and we stopped him because the D line was a half-ass rush when they were in there. So we evolved certain protections. And just watching him warm up, we talked about Chris left-footed and all that. Our answer in 2017, if we got an overload right, hey, change the protection, we're going to pocket punt left. Max is like, well, I can roll left and kick it with my left and all that. And we're like, well, okay, fine. Let's see you do it. And he did it just as good. So now our rule is, hey, overload right, we're going to roll left. So we did it once in, I forget what year it was, against like Toledo, Eastern Michigan, something like that. And then he's like, I can read the returner. And so as I'm rolling left, if he's running left, I'll roll left, kick it with my right, banana it back. And he actually did that the next week. He rolled left, kicked it with his right foot, bananaed the ball back outside the right hash because the returner was running left. And I was just like, originally I was just like, no way, it's full of shit. But he would show me in practice, he would do it. And I'm like, okay, how can we do this within the rules? How can we adjust our protection? What can we do to use your skill set? Because, I mean, the people joke about the SEC being the 3rd NFL conference. There's freaks that we see as returners, and we don't have freaks at Kentucky that are covering kicks. And we tried everything in our power. Max, your job is to make sure this guy doesn't field it. And if you can't because of weather, well, figure it out, buddy. I'm sorry. And so he'd hang it up really high. He'd come to the sideline. Well, I thought you were going to do this. Yeah, but the wind changed as I was catching it, or I caught it, took a peek, realized no one was coming, and all kinds of, like, we had a right hash supposed to kick right against Florida in 19. I forget who the returner was they had. Max caught it, took a peek. He said no one was there and saw the returner moving right. So he stepped right, kept within pocket because he knew where we were punting. Stepped to the right, but kicked it across his body 45 yards to the left sidelines, right down the little tick mark, and rolled inside the 5. And the returner just threw his hands up and stopped. But like
a big part of all that stuff, Louis and Nate, is the awareness, like you talked about, of being actual players on the field, not just guys that are kicking the ball. We're talking about a whole lot of strengths and tools and things they have. T-Mac, Chris, what do you hate about them? What's no good? What doesn't work?
You can't block their punts.
Okay.
I've been sitting here all day, literally, and we were just going through free agent tape. And as you're going through free agent tape, you're just looking, at these punters, and Cam Johnson, freaking Mike Dixon. I mean, just like we had free runners at them, like literally, we had free runners at them, and you couldn't get there because they felt it. They felt the pressure. They saw them coming. They get the ball off. 0.95, 103, 0.86. Like you ain't getting there. It's tough. So, but no, I don't see the only weakness that I see consistently is to hang the distance. That's where you get in trouble. Like when you look at Cam, the reason why they are really, really good in Philly, Cam can crush the ball, but there's going to be, if he has 5 punts, 2 of them are going to be rockets, but they can cover it. You know what I mean? And then he'll just he moves the damn ball, and that's why you can't really get him. You know what I'm saying? Like he's going to get you. Like you might be able to get him on a long return, but he does such a good job of moving the freaking ball. Like he'll directional right, he can directional left, he can pull it, back to his left. I mean, it's just the inconsistency of the ball is what gets you. You know what I mean? And those guys they're extremely talented. I mean, and Mike's the same way. He just moved the damn ball. I mean, that's what helps them offset the hang the distance issue. But they're talented guys. They really are. I mean, I told Chappie this, like, shit, I'll never have an American punter again. I mean, I'll always, if I ever have to go back to freaking college, like that's all I'll ever recruit is freaking Australian punters, because those guys grow up like we grew up throwing the ball. They grow up kicking the ball, and they can do everything with it. And it's just hard to defend. Like Louis just explained, like that shit, that sounds like some shit, like a superhero action figure, that it's just, you can't defend it. When you give them the freedom and flexibility to move, because we did the same thing with Brad, like Odell and Jarvis will run down and Brad would sit there and hold the ball. He just hold it. And then he would literally just pass it down there to him. And, we use the banana kick and all of that stuff. The ball hit the ground and go back to the left. I mean, it's just, it's the versatility is just off the charts.
For the NFL guys, can you, other than the college rule where they could just take off on the snap? I mean, obviously that's the biggest rule difference that inhibits an NFL punter from just holding the ball, right? Can you incorporate those things, within the NFL rules?
I'll speak to that a little bit, Paul. John, you and I talked about it some. Having been in the college scheme, we had the Urban Meyer punt at Mississippi State under Mullen a few years ago, and we did have the rollout pocket. We'd slide the protection. We didn't have an Aussie punter, but we had guys that would hit regular balls on a rollout. We played against Kentucky, and it's been a few years, but they were always a nightmare to go against in the punt game because they had so many formations. We knew they had a fake available, so you had to cover all that. But they had very athletic snapper who could snap and release. So you've got 3 free gunners down the field instantly, plus the added hang time of holding the ball and rolling out. It was very effective, I think, in the NFL. And even Denver started toying around with it a little bit this year, where they'd roll the punter out a little bit. I think it's on the horizon of some added schematic changes in the NFL. But I think the rules limit you so much with that. And I don't know if special teams coaches would be as afraid of different formations, and then you lose your snapper protection. You possibly could do some overloads, do some slide protection, but you still only have 2 gunners on a free release. And you're talking about good corners, good vice, good bracket. I mean, you've got a lot of other obstacles to overcome besides what you do in college, in my opinion. And so I think you're going to be limited in some of those, Chappie, and we've spoken before when I was recruiting your guys at Mississippi State. I think you're going to lose some of those stock kicks you're talking about. I think you're going to have a smaller bag in the NFL. But I do think those guys, in the long run. I think they're very athletic. I think they're very extremely competitive, tough guys. They've come up the hard road. They haven't gone to the guru camps, and they haven't gone to the all this stuff. They have come the hard road to get where they are. And I think you're going to end up with the intangibles with these guys that you can count on to execute the things you want done on the field. I think you're going to have guys that are going to stick their nose in the briar patch and go down and make tackles. So I have a lot of respect for these guys. And I think eventually, I think you will start see some schematic changes with the protection. You may not be able to buy as much effectiveness with the coverage or the get off time as you can in college, but I think you're going to start to see some of that.
Because still for us, the league wants to make sure at the end of the day that the return game is still viable. And just for example, last year, I mean, there was just a little slight discussion because the punt return average was down a year ago, not this past season, but 19. And they were concerned about that. Do we need to change? And really what the question came up because you're kind of penalizing because the punters are getting so good. So I think that there's going to be that fine balance in the league here.
You know, the other thing too is even if you do slide that pocket, I mean, we experienced this last week against Kansas City. I mean, you got 92 rushing the edge. I mean, you start having to ask that guy to protect for 3 seconds on a punt. That's a whole nother animal. So there's going to be some things you have to work through. But I think ideally they're worth discussion and worth getting on the board to try to figure out if you can buy yourself a little, extra half a second or second on the get off time to allow your gunners to get down the field based on the front you have.
Yeah. Or potentially to add to that is kick it 2 yards out of bounds at 44 yards. You know what I mean? And I guess I think that's where we're trying to also add, hey, if you've got to use the sideline as your friend, you use it. Well, yeah, we want the returner to fumble that ball and we can maybe pick it back up. And Louis saying, Thomas, you're saying that, these guys can just kick it down and pass it to the corner, given the time, having them allowed to just kick it out of bounds and sort of maximize that yardage, or putting it, it's either going to be 2 yards out of bounds, it's on the sideline, or it's 2 yards in. The good guys have that ability, which just adds to the difficult nature of the return. So I guess that's again where we're trying to say, hey, sometimes if you've got to take your medicine, it's a good returner. They're still got that ability to get it. We'll say 38 to 46. It's a pretty tight window. If you angle a little right and then still have to kick it out of bounds, it's a pretty tight window at 42 yards to be able to get it out of bounds. But I think that's really where it's going. So they've got the ability to do it. How do we help coaches let their players or punters show that and show the ability? And again, that's what can we do to practice to help ingrain messages to coaches to say, hey, can we try this? How do we try that? And it can be communication between the punter and the coach and how much time you allocate to it. From our point of view, it's a pretty safe kick. And if you've got to kick for hang time, it's not like they're not going into the NFL without the power to do so. And I guess that's the beauty of the hybrid, is to say, hey, if you've got this look and you're in the middle of the field and you've got a pretty good angle towards 44 yards out of bounds, well, heck, you hit a low spear, Aussie style kick that's going to be in the air for 3 seconds and it goes out of bounds by 5 yards. And you just kick it straight for it, which is just like,
I was going to say, Chappie, we're going back in history a little bit. You mentioned the 3 second hang time earlier, and that's probably going to make a lot of coaches crap their pants. But we're really talking coffin corner punts here from anywhere on the field. The problem with coffin corner punts back in the day was when you're trying to hit a spiral and you get the 1 out of 5 shank when the guy's trying to put it on the sideline or on the pylon going to the right, or even to the left, it either ends up in the middle of the field coming back at you on a line drive, or it goes out of bounds at the 35-yard line with a 15-yard punt. So that kind of went away when we found the end over end punt, because we thought, well, hell, just hang it up there. It'll land inside the 10. We either get a good bounce or we get a fair catch, and we're good either way. Can we do that from anywhere on the field now and guarantee no return? Because at the end of the day, all of these guys want fewer returns at all costs, right? We're not trying to get them to return the ball to maybe cause a fumble. We'd love no returns. Boom, give me a 42 net. I never had a ball returned, and you've got an all-pro punter. So that's and so there's another solution rather than the 5-0 hang time that gets fair caught every time, but that, like you say, at worst 38, at best 46. How many guys are signing up for a 43-yard net all day if that's your window, with a 3-yard hang time? And we know that is not a difficult punt, and the margin for error is much smaller than the old coffin corner spiral where we were like, okay, bro, like the best guys got really good at it. Fiegel's got great at it, right? There were some other guys that got really good at it, but then every once in a while, even the best guys would put one out on the 32, and you're like, bro, we should have just kicked the field goal if you were going to shake it like that, right? So maybe a little bit of rewind and bringing that idea back into the game in a different form.
Yeah, I don't think. I reckon Cam Johnson did it in a finals series, maybe in his first season. And I think some of this stuff, like you said, Chris, it's already been done. There's a lot of stuff that's coming into it. I don't think it's being seen because the commentators don't talk about it, and the fucking cuts to the break and it cuts to the ad, and people don't get to hear the conversations. But there's a game Philly were playing. I'm sorry, I forget who they were playing. I believe it was in the third or fourth quarter, and Cam Johnson's put a line drive, backward spinning ball, aimed right, kicked it low. Just got the returner off his alignment. He kicked it cross field, but really low. It's probably gone 41 yards in the air, and it's rolled from 53 net, stops at the 10. And that was just bringing that ball low across his body. Returner couldn't pick it up and didn't want to go near it. It was cold and windy and didn't touch it. I think it's been done. I just don't think it is. That's why I think we can explore it more.
That's it. You see that one? That the old sidewinder.
Yep.
Rolls. I mean, those. I'm a fan of that one.
I was just watching one earlier today. I'm watching Michael Dixon. We were watching our power turn cut-ups, and he hit one. Their left hash, our right. Ball's like on the probably minus 25, 46 yards, maybe 2-8 hang, 2-7 out of bounds. Like nobody had a chance to get it. Like it literally hit 46 yards out of bounds. Couldn't get to it. Like ball's out of bounds. What are you going to do? I mean, it's just, you get it. We get it a lot, especially, because we got freaking Cams in our division, so we see him all the time. And that's the thing with Cam. Like, it's hard to get a beat on him because he's always moving the ball around.
And Thomas, on that punt you talked about, the announcer said he shanked that, but he got good results.
Yeah, they have
Of course.
Yeah, they have no clue.
Jeff, you were going to say something.
I was just, as you guys, first of all, I got to commend T-Mac on his outfit today.
Award is for you, Jeff.
I love it. This is really intriguing to me because I got a little bit of a historical perspective, because when I was in NFL Europe, Darren Bennett was in NFL Europe, and that's the only guy I've ever seen in 30 years in pro football that other players would come out and watch warm up because of the way he could hit the football and what he could do with the football. But in the Canadian League, where the rules are so diametrically different, and this is even more intriguing because the player in the like rugby, a player in the Canadian League who's behind the ball when it's punted can recover the ball, right? So there's so many more things that these guys could add to our game. The question I wanted to ask, though, is because we're involved in a global initiative right now with the CFL, have you had contact with the league at all about getting your guys in our league?
Your league is about to go gangbusters, and it's going to get really exciting. So yes, we have, and fuck, I'd like to say that the CFL may as well be Aussie rules. That crazy game, it just allows for this shit to just go wild. It's going to go crazy. So yes, we have. Yes, we have. Keep an eye out for it. I would expect to see 4 to 5 in there shortly. Yeah.
Well, I know from our standpoint, we're looking for one, because if he's not in the global initiative, he's got to play as an American, and you're not going to have an American punter on a restricted roster like we have. So, but
Yeah.
to have an Aussie guy would be fantastic.
Yeah. Send me a message. I'll give you a list of who's actually on that global roster for the.
And you know, and John had talked about things for the guys to work, because the amount of kicks that, to borrow Chris's term, that a guy would want in his bag in our league is probably more than a guy would want in the NFL because of the rules changes, the rules differences.
Yeah. The CFL is perfect for this, for Australian rules. Oh, there's so many things that match up. A little more restrictive in the NFL, but again, it's that ability to. And I think if we've talked about those, how do we give your coaches the tools to say, hey, this can work. It's like you need a little play toy to have some fun with for a while and go, hey, can this work? Can we get on the same page here and go, hey, you know what? Let's just spend a day. Show me these different kicks. Let's set some formations up now. Here's the wing condition. We're on the right hash, so we've got to go right. We're going to go right. What are the options if we go right? And show me 3 versions of how we're going to get it left without a return and without him touching it. And there'll be 4 different kicks that you could use, which would need to be worked on. Again, it's not, you just don't. You know, there's a lot of pressure that happens in a game, and it can go slightly awry if you don't practice it. You know, just say, hey, I've practiced this when I was 12 and I can still do it. At the top level, there's different pressures that come along with that. But it's certainly, again, how can we help you get an advantage in your conference, in your division, and just pick up those extra hidden yardages? And so, as we all know with special teams coaches, well, fuck, if a running back can run 150 yards, you love him. Well, yeah, if we punt 5 times, we can get you 250. So fucking let's spend some time like getting those 50 yards. So, who and the how can we present something to you to say, hey, what else can we do? How am I going to gain an advantage? Because if I do that 1 or 2 trick plays, and they're not even trick plays, just something different, it'll buy us time. It'll buy us less pressure. They're not coming for us because they don't know where we're going to go, and create a mismatch somewhere, whether it be on the return game or on the line. We've got to help. We've got to help you. We just got to open your awareness to say what you might think is scary is actually that stuff we can sort of sometimes do blindfolded. So there's that openness to allow for some bit more trust to come into it as well, and say, hey, we're going to do this together. Because it's scary to say, hey, I need you to do a fucking kick that goes right and fades left and whatever. But if we get it wrong, I get the sack. No, you know what? We'll just do a spiral down the middle. Thanks. You give me 42 yards and I'll keep my job, keep my wife happy. So we fully understand the outcomes if we get it wrong. I guess what we're saying at the NFL level, and the good guys come up through college in the CFL, they're probably more advanced than you think about it. And it's less scary to do if you spend the time on it.
I think we talked about experience too, you know, how they have a natural feel for the game. I think a lot of guys don't realize so many of these kids come over here as men. They come over here having played in Aussie rules professionally. They've already been in that kind of environment, you know, at the Australian equivalent of it. So that kind of experience, that's invaluable. I think that's one thing that's overlooked as well a lot.
Yeah. I mean, even from an age point of view, you know, if you start at 27, you're too old. Yet if you're in it, you can kick till 40. Well, that doesn't make sense. If you're a punter and look after your body, I think to a degree that we spend so long honing our craft and being comfortable with ourselves. Yeah, being a bit older has been a benefit for a lot of kids. lot of young men. Certainly big Lewis Headley, who's down at Miami, full of ink. I remember his first game.
I love that guy.
He was playing. I think his first game. I'm going to say it was against Louisville or it was against Florida. I'm not quite sure. We knew the special teams coach, and he's like, "We're going to go after this, Louis. You keep talking about him because if you don't take one of our guys and then we put him in, we tend to then sometimes go, well, fuck it, I'm going to put him in your conference and we're going to ring you up every week and go, hey, see what he did, just for a bit of fun. That's a bit of our humour." And so I'm pretty sure it was Florida said, we're going to come after him. And they brought the heat 2 times in a row, and the punter and the special teams coach on the sideline just sort of licking their fingers. And as T-Mac just sort of said, they came after him. They had a free run at him, and he got the ball off him 0.82 twice. And they just said, "Fuck, what do we have to do with a free run at it?" And that was his first ever game. First ever game. Oh, sorry. He played junior college. He'd sat out for 8 months to get his AA degree, and then he went. So he hadn't played for 12 months.
I didn't get that.
Thanks,
Could
Siri.
you try again?
I'll tell everyone. And so, and again, so like you're right, they're just probably a fair bit more comfortable in their skin sometimes than the older guys, obviously. But their awareness and their ability to just, shit, something's happening here, I need to move real quick. They've probably got that quick twitch, instinctive nature to go, fuck, I've got to get rid of it. Because again, in our game, it's a 360 coming from all different angles, but I still need to skillfully get the ball to one of our teammates, which may be this angle, over someone 30 meters away or 50. So that's probably where the skill comes from.
In the end, these guys got a bunch of, cool kicks, all the tools in the belt, as they say. But the inevitability is that this is happening. We can either decide how we're going to use these guys, or just try to change them when they get to the NFL or the CFL or wherever to a more traditional guy. So we've got a guy that has some natural ability. Okay, cool. But I need him to punt a certain way. Those guys are going to be few and far between as we get down the next 3, 5, 6 years with all the punters that are in the pipeline in college. Again, you're going to get to the combine and 6 of 7 guys are going to be Aussies. So how do we evaluate it? How do we take advantage of it? Can we be on the cutting edge rather than getting way down the road? And at the end of the day, you got a free agent punter. You're looking at the market. They're all Aussies, and we haven't figured out what we're supposed to do with an Aussie guy yet. But this guy was with the team, so we'll take him. That was sort of the big picture idea, to sort of get guys thinking and not only recognize the strengths and maybe some weaknesses that Chappie can help these guys work on going down the road, but hey, I got to get more creative with my ideas about how I coach special teams. And that's obviously not a knock against anybody, but just as with players, if you're not going to get better as a coach tomorrow, then you'll probably be out of whatever league you're in in the short term, right? So that was just kind of the big picture in terms of bringing everybody together.
And on that, John, and this is where what we've done at college, and if I refer back to it, what we do for the coaches at college now is we've got this phrase, hey, it's just like ordering a pizza. Tell us what you want. It's like, how do you think your conference is in your league? If you had the fucking magic genie that said, give me a punter that can kick it on the right foot, left foot, kick it high, kick it long, kick it low, can throw it, is an athlete and run, you'd freaking rub that genie and make your 3 wishes, right? So we're sort of saying, if you thought, this is what we currently do, this is what the punters do, how can I gain an advantage? And if to that advantage, if I had my wish list, I had X, Y, and Z, we try and tailor that. If you're in the SEC and think spiral's the way to go, we'll give you our best spiral guy. If you're in the SEC and Louis and say, hey, you know what? we need someone to do 7 different kicks because we don't have as a big defensive line. Right, we need to run it more. Okay, we'll give you the best running guy who kicks it on the run with the most skill, and it might be a different player than the spiral guy. So if you tell us what you want, we'll put it on a plate for you, given the right player with the right coach with the right skill set, so that it's a win-win. If we give you a spiral guy and you say, hey, we're going to roll out, well, your efficiency might go down a little bit because we could have given you somebody else. So if we think about that from your coaching at all levels, CFL and NFL, it's like, if you thought there was an advantage to be given or taken in your current position and against the teams you play, what do you think it would be? And is it, hey, if we got 2 more yards, how are we going to get those 2 yards? If it's 2 yards on average and we go from 40 net to 42, 42 to 44, how are we going to get them? And if you think there's a special way to do it, let us help show you whether that can be done through an Australian. And this is probably where we'd say, what we're doing now with our guys is we're getting better athletes coming across. We're getting better athletes who are coming across and getting their 4 years experience to then move up into potentially in the NFL. We started out with just making sure they could spiral because the colleges weren't ready for the rollout kick and the drop punt. We then got them to roll out, do the spiral, and a few of them would run a little bit. And then it's now the next part of our journey is we're getting them to throw. We're going to get them to a level to throw. So if you've got an athlete who's 6'3", or again, size sometimes doesn't matter. Cam's not big, but shit, he's a weapon. They're fast and explosive, so they can run. They've got instinct. They can kick on both feet, high, long, low. They've got some game awareness if you put them in that format, or don't box them into a format which makes them feel like they've got to be a little robotic. And then you throw them, or you can teach them to throw. We're in a pretty good spot. You're now not just a punter, you're a player. And then is that how we gain the yardage? Is it an extra first down by running the ball? Is it some things there? So if we're talking about the guys now coming through, we got 10 players next year who have NFL ability, and they've all got different strengths in their skill sets, but they'll gain a fair bit of recognition. So yeah, how can we, from an American point of view, the way you hold the ball to do a backward spinning kick, okay, although it might make me want to gag, it's like, I get it. I think the US lads are getting pretty good at it. I think they're pretty good. But the way they hold the ball will limit what they can do with it. And if they want to just kick it 40 yards, right, it's going to be hard for them with the way they hold it. And I talk about that pineapple hold up the top, right, and the ball's down. It's going to limit the trajectory and angle they can kick. It won't allow for the ball tilt and ball angle for it to hit your foot right. So although it's actually some really good guys at it, especially going in. I think the US guys and the plus punts going in, they're pretty good at it, but they'll lose touch. They'll lose that real, I'm going to put this on the 2-yard line. And I think if you watch some guys do the Aussie kick, or the Aussie guys, they've got a bit of a feel for it. They grab the ball, they look up, they look down, they look up, and it's a bit of, they've got a real feel for where they're kicking the ball. If you just hold that ball straight out and the leg swings up, you lose depth control. And that's why it can be too far or too short. So there is certainly something to look at about how they manipulate their ball, their dexterity in their hands, and how their body structure is when they kick that ball. Mitch Wisniewski's really good at it. Dicko's really good at it. You see there's a real finesse and touch to it, which I think that's where the US guys will limit themselves by the way they hold it. So if we can help you understand what that looks like, then evaluating a good US player coming through who can do an Aussie kick will still be different and will still be a little bit limited to what a technically or a gifted Aussie might be, and the potential to do the extra kicks that we might be talking about now. So
I think you helping with the ability to evaluate is a huge component of this, because to answer your question, well, what do you guys want? I think everybody on this call will answer that differently after hearing all of the different options than if you just ask them random, special teams coach around the NCAA or CFL or NFL, what do you want? Because I don't think everybody knows all those tools in the bag, all those clubs in the bag. So I think that's half of the challenge and the benefit of you spending your time on here with us is telling us what we want. I don't think half of those things are viewed as realistic. We could do this in a game at this level consistently. I think they're viewed more still by a lot of people as those are one-offs or a little bit trick play or gimmicky things still, when what I'm hearing and I've heard is that this is really, you can incorporate all these things into your game to different levels, obviously, and really be ahead of that curve with that. So I think the answer to your question is different for everybody here now. And, for you personally, Chappie, I think your challenge is education. It's helping other people evaluate that, but wait until all our guys take advantage of it first and beat them on a couple good punts. And then you could tell everybody else.
Well, and that's right. We've had some, Chris, we had, you talk about being able to kick on your opposite foot. We've had coaches where just being able to move and the ball hit your left foot and it might go 25 yards would spin some coaches out. I was like, come on, my 12-year-old daughter can do that. You still need to understand and not get mesmerized by what's a good. Heck, for example, some of our players come down to training and they think they've got a bit of a cannon arm. And I go, yeah, congratulations, well done. It's not until they get to the US, they go, fuck, I'm never going to throw a ball ever again. So it's actually having an appreciation for what's good, what's really good, and what's elite, and then how to utilize it. So
understanding it doesn't have to look good to be good. Back to Thomas's example from earlier, it doesn't have to look good to be really good and effective.
I would sometimes say that I have some heated discussions with some coaches who, hey, we need to do a spiral. Yeah, but if the wind's blowing, and this is what we now do with our recruiting film, what we send, there's no reason why we can't, every time we go and train, produce some type of. I'll send it to all these coaches. Serious things. If we can't send our film every time we train, we should be able to get some type of film that's usable for a coach. If it's really windy, great. Guess what? So our films now, hey, I'm going to show you 2 spirals and they're going to be shit house because physics is going to tell me that this right to left howling breeze is not going to allow me to kick this spiral. It's going to be really difficult. And it doesn't mean I'm not a good spiral guy. It just means the percentages of getting it right and making it look good to the eye is going to be really difficult. So how about, hey, and we'll make them sometimes kick 2 spirals, which will be ordinary. We'll get them to turn to the camera and we'll say, difficult conditions, this ain't going well. I'm still going to the same location, but I'm going to use a different kick. And I'm going to use a kick from the pocket, but it's now going to go low. And we've got to give context to a lot of the stuff that we do, because once that film's evaluated, it goes, well, how far? 44 yards. Looks like it's a sunny day. Well, heck, it can look like it's a sunny day in Texas right now, but it's 4 inches of snow, right? So we've got to try and put the context behind it's difficult conditions, and hang time and distance don't necessarily mean it's not a good workout. You can see plenty of guys have a good workout once you're there and you go, shit, that was a really good workout today. We didn't hit any 5.5 second balls, but you manage the conditions really well. And so we've got to try and bring that together on film where coaches don't see and go, that was 42 yards. What? And the best ball was a 4.3. And I can get a high school kid from freaking Florida who can kick a 4.8. So we've got to try and mix that up a little bit. So when you're watching film and this is why I say we should be able to go, hey, if it's really windy, we should be able to get going in film. It's going to be shorter. We'll do some into the breeze and some with it. It's going to be really hard to make a spiral turnover, but we can still get something because the conditions are difficult. So we're finding a way to be able to show you that there's always a way to get something that's impressive, and also a way for you for probably what you're looking at and your recruiters or who you send out, or whether you look yourself as to potentially what you might want to see.
And I'll throw one more thing on that too, because if T-Mac's got to get in. If you're talking about all those different kicks, you're not only doing it for yourself, but think of preparing to play against that. I mean, special teams coaches, not even 5-6 years ago, used to think they were creative and ahead of the curve by bringing in a left-footed punter to punt to their return guys because they're facing a lefty that week. That was about as far as creativity got. And now, if you're going to have to prepare for all these different things, my gosh, I mean, you're giving that opponent a whole lot more work to do every week and prepare for. And that's just a fact.
And our biggest challenge is time. Everybody wants more time. You can't get enough time. You can't get enough meeting time. You can't get enough practice time. And now you've got a myriad of things, situational football you got to defend because this kicker can do these things, this punter can do these things. That's tough.
Paul, can I ask a question?
Hey,
Yeah, go ahead.
Bronco, I apologize. Guys, I
Okay.
apologize. I have to roll because it's Ash Wednesday here, Chappie, and I want more. Bake, I'll call you for some other what you guys, because this is awesome, and I really do appreciate it. And if we do more, that'd be even better. But I got to pick up the daughter before 7 o'clock mass, fellas.
Go for it, Tapes.
Thanks,
See you,
guys.
Tapesy.
Bronco, see you, buddy.
See you, Tapesy. Hey, Paul, I have a question, and I'm going to slightly digress. And this is probably a question directed for recent or current college coaches. Has there ever been any discussion, or is there currently discussion within the NCAA Rules Committee regarding aligning college football punt rules with the NFL punt rules for, and I can think of a myriad of reasons why you would want to do that. Not to mention that it would improve the integrity of the college return game. But has that ever been brought up within the Rules Committee? Does anybody know anything about? Does anybody have any information about that?
I'll turn that over to our college guys. We got Will and
I'll
Louis
interject. I'll interject and say, hey, look, if you want good kicking game rules, Jeff, feel like saying anything? The
Come see us, because I'm gonna tell you
CFL
something.
is,
It
I
is
mean,
the
bro,
best
if you want an
place.
exciting game, Tabes talked earlier about, well, the return game and how do we increase returns and the excitement. It's in the CFL. That's where excitement is at in the.
I mean, Jeff, Coach, do you have the release rule of the NCAA, or do you have the NFL release rule where the two external guys can release on the snap and then there's a 2-second-ish?
First of all, we have an extra player. So it'll look a little different to you optically. You have three free release players, 3 gunners that can go free release. And then we have the core, the 5 inside guys, they have the NFL rule. So they cannot leave until the ball's hunted. So we're kind of a mix of the two, the college rule. See, the other thing, Brock, you can't fair catch in the Canadian League. And for Chappie, any ball that's punted out of bounds outside the 25-yard line, that's a 15-yard penalty on the punting team.
Wow.
So it really, unless you can skip it out. If it hits the ground and goes out, then it's not a penalty. But if you punt it out of bounds in the air, it's a 15-yard penalty from the spot that it went out. So the requirements of a punter in our league are really, really unique and special. But I agree with Chappie that that's the next frontier, because you line up for a field goal, let's say. Yep.
Yeah, you can kick the fucking ball back once you. What's that play there where they were kicking the ball back? there was a final series.
Okay, I just so to give you a sense, any player on the field can punt the ball, can advance the ball by punting it. You can throw a ball out to a wide receiver on a smoke screen, and he can punt it down the field. And if you're behind him when that ball is punted, you can go down and recover it. Right. So we have plays that we call onside plays, where, for example, we line up in field goal formation, and all of a sudden you run your wings out and punt the ball, and if they're behind the ball, they can go down and recover it, and it's a first down. So it's something now. I'm telling you, there's a lot of pieces.
Wow. So a scrimmage kick is actually live. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. It's
guys,
only live if you're behind the ball.
Yeah, got it.
But see, the other thing is you can't fair catch the ball either, right?
Right.
So, for example, even on a kickoff, you can't fair catch a kickoff. You have
the halo rule still.
Yeah, you got a 5-yard halo around the ball as it's touched. Yeah.
Okay. Well, but can any of the NCAA coaches, can you guys attest? Has there been any discussion ever about aligning the rules of NCAA with the NFL rules?
I've actually asked a few times on that, being a pro punt guy myself. Every time I've asked, they keep telling me no, they don't plan to change it, and a lot of it is just so they have more players run downfield. But I think I agree with you, Brock, that it should change. That in terms of development wise, it's better for the NFL game. I actually ran pro punt in college. I actually ran a rugby out of a short motion look, pro punt look that Foss used to run. But it's definitely very useful. It's unique, but to what was mentioned earlier, it was obviously if you have a big D-line rushing, it's obviously a unique to try to do that out of that look.
Sure.
But pro punt, I think, is slowly coming out. You do have 4 teams now in the Pac-12 that actually are pro punts. So I see team coaches wanting to do it more and more.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because it's an obvious developmental hindrance for not just punters and long snappers, but also any potential core players in the NFL who are going to have to play on the punt team. I mean, to teach the kick slide and the technique that's involved in that is a very time-consuming job with respect to the shield punt, which, as you know, Coach, I mean, you can teach that a lot easier. So anyway, okay, I was just curious about that.
Well, that's why it will never get changed, because coaches don't want to spend the time in college with the 20-hour rule, limited amount of meetings, limited amount of practice to teach a linebacker or tight end how to kick slide.
It's interesting.
You know, we honestly, our punt period within day 1 of spring ball, in 7 minutes, we'll have every skill kid be able to protect what we do. And we don't ever have to work the individual technique again. Maybe one other time in spring. In season, we do it every Monday because we're just in helmets. And that's it. You don't have to you can get a kid that has never been on scout team a whole year. You get some injuries, hey, come over, and in one day, teach them how to protect.
Plug and
you would
play.
never be able to do that with pro punt. And
no.
Snapper, you got twitch, they got to go kick over. We had there's a lot more intricacies in pro punt, and the time restraints in college is why I honestly believe it won't ever align. Coaches won't go for it.
I know
Interesting.
I know it's harder, but in the snapper world, I definitely feel that there are a lot more true snapper coaches that actually work on training those guys. Now, obviously, it's trying to find the right size, the right dimension. Everyone likes, say, guy that's 6'2", 6'3", 230 to 260. Everyone's got a different philosophy, and it's finding the unique snapper, which I agree with you, it's hard to find that unique guy. And if you don't have them, then you have to stay with the Shield. And I totally
Sure.
because it is unique, it is hard.
Yeah.
But
Well, that aligning that rule with the NFL rule though would help the Aussie punter, for example, because then NFL scouts and coaches would have already seen the Aussie punter within that
environment,
right? So that it kind of dovetails the conversation. Anyway, okay, thanks, guys.
Any other questions from anybody else? Chap, anything that you want to make sure that you get out there that we haven't already discussed?
No, I think
Covered a lot of ground.
Yeah. I think Coach Williams, let me ask you a question. And this is probably something to come back or for all coaches. Do you know how many Australians are in Division 1 football at the moment?
At the time?
Punting this year, how many punters do you reckon Australians are in?
Just a guesstimate, I'll say between 25 and 30.
Okay. Anyone else want to jump in just for a bit of shits and giggles?
I'll say as pissed off as some of the American punting coaches are, I'd say it's probably more like 120.
I would definitely lean probably at least 80, 90. I mean, I definitely get blown up from Aussies just looking for homes. So I know there's a lot more out there and a lot of good ones as well. And in scheme wise, I'll be honest, it really is tough to scheme for the unique look. You don't know what you're gonna get. I used to have a Australian with Chappie Wade Lee's a couple years ago, and then same thing, like the things he was able to do for us was really unique.
Yeah.
I'm dying to hear the number.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, given if COVID didn't mess it up, I believe we had something like 82, and there was probably 10 in FC. Yeah.
Wow.
So,
good gracious.
And
so back to the original, guys. This is inevitable. It is going to happen in the NFL and the CFL. It's just a matter of how quickly you jump on board.
The Aussie takeover.
And we've put another, and we've already done another 20 so far for 2021 and 2022. So there's 20 more on the way.
Damn Aussies.
And we're just trying to say, how can we help you? What do you need? How do we make you aware of what's coming so that you can gain an advantage?
Paul,
now,
Chappie, do you have CFL tape? Do you have access to CFL tape?
No, not necessarily. We can watch it, we can get it, but not access, no.
Would you be interested in me putting together a reel of some of the things that are unique to our league that you'll see that that could possibly help us in the future with a guy and training these guys, locating these guys?
Oh, absolutely.
Because I'll be glad to do that.
Yeah. And we got Johnny Smith, who's my partner. He's a fucking almanac of rules and a massive CFL fan and NFL. But in terms of rules, right across rules, loves it. If we go back to sort of ordering the pizza, tell us what you want to see and we go and do it. And we like, hey, what do you want to see on film, coach? Okay, we just go and do it. Show us if you can do that. And that's probably how we're trying to get the awareness of coaches to ask for something. Kick it along the ground. Show us from this, what we can't. We've got enough players now, which we didn't have for years, but we've got enough players now to really mimic, an offensive and defensive line and protection. And we do it as best we can that can show some structure. We don't run into each other as in like a live scrimmage. But we obviously train in helmets and pads. We give them the reference and the peripheral awareness of the field size and shape and angles and all of that type of thing. So, but anything that we can get that helps you as a coach make a decision as to, oh, right, okay, I get it, and I'm aware and I'm on the same page, ask. And that's it. It's just communication. We're not in the, we've got the players, and it's not a statistic of, hey, here, just choose who you want. We actually get right down and dirty to the why we would recommend a player. And as T-Mac would know, and Coach Louis, you got, and you've just had Bangers Berry turn up. It's like we've got 60 players that we're training currently for college. If Florida called tomorrow, even though they got someone, if Florida called tomorrow, we would show them 2 players, potentially only one, and say, that's the player you need to take. Tell me what you want, and this is the player. And so when we discuss, I had a real good discussion with Detroit last year, and he sort of mentioned, well, Aaron Sipos is coming out, and this is sort of what we're looking at. Can he fit it? And we just went through the pros and cons of the why we would say he fits the scheme, and what coach was looking for. And the discussions are not about, hey, this is a statistic for us to put on the website, because I tell you, my website fucking says, my website doesn't even say that Michael Dixon's been drafted. And that was 4 years ago, 4 years ago. So if you have a look at the ammo where we're coming from, it's actually about helping you as coaches understand you're not getting jibbed on. He just wants to sell us a player. It's like, hey, tell us, we absolutely want to make the punting game better. And we know with the breed of guys coming through that there's a real opportunity for you to do so. How do we help you understand and get on board with that? And so, I don't even know why I've headed in that direction in the conversation, but it's like, it's we've got a real passion for showing the skill sets that we've got. And you guys need to understand it.
That's the key, is letting everyone know what skill sets they have. Because I'll go back to I love your pizza analogy because I love pizza, but I'm gonna switch it on you. I was a pepperoni pizza guy forever until I found out that Pepe's Pizza in New Haven, Connecticut made a white clam pizza. I had no idea it even existed. And you know what? I get a freaking white clam pizza every single time I go there now, because I didn't know it existed. And now that's the best thing in the history of the world right there. So I think educating coaches, not asking them what they want, because they don't know the world of what you have yet. They might ask for 3 things out of a 100 population variable world. If they know you got 100, they might open up completely and say, well, I need 86 of those. So that's what I wanted to accomplish on this call, to be 100% candid. I wanted our coaches to know what's out there. Like, what could these guys do that we're missing the boat on? And I definitely appreciate, Louis jumping on, who's had a guy at the highest level here, he was candid enough to say, I let him run with it. I let him do his thing sometimes. We gave him parameters and let him make his decision. Because I think not a lot of coaches have the stomach for that, But I think if there's a way, Chappie, for example, I'm sure you have it on your website, but put together literally a tick list. These are all the things that we could do in film of all the things that our guys do, to get the wheel spinning. I think it'll be accepted more widely, because they won't keep ordering the pepperoni pizza if they know that there's a white clam pizza out there or whatever the other variables you might have.
I'll jump in real quick. Coach Chapman, I appreciate the time that you're, spending with us, and Paul and John, appreciate you guys putting this together. But you're talking about Sipos, like we didn't know exactly what we're getting until we had him. So I was with the Lions last year, and we had Sip. He's an amazing individual. And the time that we spent with him at practice, and him just letting him just do his thing, and like, hey, show us what you have. And all the different kicks that he had, and how he improved on kickoff, and even just with the ball on the ground, the different kicks that he had, it was very impressive. Now, we had Jack Fox. He was our Pro Bowl punter this year, but he was getting pushed every single day by Sip being in the building, and Sip got better. And one thing that somebody brought up about, like, you're going against all these different kicks each week, if you're going against an Aussie type punter, well, one thing for us, like, some teams they bring in, like, Paul, you're talking about like going against a left-footed punter each week. Well, we didn't have to bring in a left-footed punter because Sip could punt the ball left-footed at practice. You know what I mean? So he would hit spiral punts, end over end, and he would do it with his left foot. So like some teams, like the year before, we would bring in a lefty or put the jugs on a left rotation, work that. Having Sip in the building, if he was the number one, he could do that. And now we're being efficient. And now we're seeing like, okay, I didn't even know he could do that. And he's pre-practice, he's hitting left-footed punts on the sideline, 42, 43 yards, but it's like you're talking about, it wasn't necessarily the hang time, but he had Jamal Agnew running for the football and he was having to fill that different type of rotation. So, that's pretty big. And that opened my eyes up because that was the first Aussie that I ever worked with. And I mean, I'm whatever he has going on, his future, he's gonna have a bright future in the league just because of what he could do. I did have one question with dealing with like working out Aussie punters and stuff, and you're on a team where, let's say you have a Matt Prater where he's probably just gonna do field goals, or Robbie Gold. Is that something that you guys work on too, kickoffs? And getting those guys to be, more efficient, effective with kickoffs, especially if you have a older kicker that you're paying money to, and that he's not the best kickoff guy, but you really like this punter, but you don't want that to hold you back from picking him up or drafting him because of his kickoff ability.
Yeah, we do test everyone with it to see their levels. Again, we don't try and over exaggerate what they can do. Some of them have a real natural ability of just feeling the ball on their foot and coming in on a pretty good angle. Generally, they're comfortable off 5 and 3 back. As soon as you get them out to sort of 9 and 5 or something like that, they get a little lost. So being compact, some of them have a really natural ability, which is like Sipper. Sipper was, Detroit are looking at me. I think they want me to kick off. Fuck, I better go learn that. Now, he could just sort of do it, but still had to work at it, but had an ability. And some other guys come in like they're on ice skates and don't ever ice skated before. So that's a little something we look at, and we keep them ticking over without making them combo guys, for the fact of it can be a saving grace, but also, how am I going to say this? If you can do kickoff, it really helps with your, it doesn't affect your Aussie kicks at all. If you're doing kickoff and you're trying to be a straight-legged spiral, it's really difficult. But hips opening up, rotating, and you're then trying to come back through straight with a punt. There's a bit of stuff there that can make it difficult, which is also, just to say, as you evaluate guys, if you have an Aussie and you say, hey, we're going to spiral this time, and then we're going to do an Aussie kick from the pocket. Oh, now we're going to roll out. You're asking him to put the ball in 3 different positions at different ball angles. One's flat, one's sort of nose down, one's heavy nose down. We've got different trajectories. We've got different ball heights. You miss it by an inch either side, and it can be a really ordinary punt. So I think as coaches start to understand, oh yeah, they can do all these things, the most affected kick will be the spiral. Okay, because we'll do the Aussie stuff blindfolded, but if you get that spiral wrong and it's slightly nose down and you're trying to kick it high, and the ball's, we're trying to make a contact point here, and we've got it slightly lower than where we wanted to hit it, and it's nose down, that thing's going to bounce off sideways off your foot. So to go between a really fast, violent ball handling, push it down to your foot and get it low to the ground and kick it out, versus hold it up nice and flat, calm, and release really softly, the more you're asking to chop and change, you'll get a little more inconsistencies with your spiral. Okay, so again, doesn't mean they can't spiral, just means sometimes they've got to just re-hone back in and recalibrate to get the softness. So just as a coaching tool, going in and out of the 3 of them can be difficult on the spiral part. All right. And actually, one thing and you brought up there about Sipper and probably what these guys do, they're such hands players. Their hands, fucking go to the NFL combine and he's got small fingers and no wingspan. Like, no, these dudes, these guys, again, 360, do this stuff with the way we release the ball over here is all catching it on the ground, picking it up, scooping it and running, and then having the ability to still get stuff away. That's our natural instinct. So we probably haven't even, we talked about the kicking part, but actually the skill sets of their hands are very, very good. And although we don't go into it, I'd put any of our players and throw them in a Hail Mary any day of the week.
And that goes with the off time.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Because of our restricted roster, 40-man roster, right? Obviously, more things a guy can do, the more value he has. Do you work with your guys on teaching them to be holders as well, so that they can work with?
Yeah, they're all
because we'll have a field goal guy, but good.
Yeah, no, they all hold. We often have. Sometimes you coach it. Sometimes you coaches are used to seeing things a certain way, and we have that expectation or not to say that, well, they're Aussie, so they don't know how to hold. We get all sorts. We get good holders. We get guys who are really smooth with it. Some who have to work pretty hard at it, and we get some guys. Mitch Wisnowski held for 3 years at Utah, never missed a field goal, and then got told he couldn't hold by the time he got to the NFL level. So, and then he holds all year in the 49ers. So it's like, perception and what you're seeing and what you want to see can, dictate that outcome. But we absolutely start them off from day one, learning to hold from here. They'll do 12 plus months of it. They'll go to college. Some of them will start holding because of necessity, and some will start holding a year or two into their degree. Absolutely.
All right, cool.
Chappie, we'll share all your information with all the coaches in case any of you guys, want to reach back out to him. We'll send you his email and his contact information. Does that work, Chappie?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, again, we're here to help. It's such a fun conversation to open up to.
Absolutely. I can't thank you enough. Yeah, I can't thank you enough for spending your time with us, and for our coaches too, who came on here. I really appreciate it. And hopefully you got something out of it as well. I thought it was awesome. I thought you did a really great job, and I really appreciate helping our guys out. And Ben, great job putting it together.
Sorry.
Before y'all get out of here, I just wanted to say something to Chapman, because I hadn't talked to him in a while. And me and Chappie go back long, all the way back to Jai Bond. And I told him something a long time ago, because when I first came across it with him, it was amazing to me. Like these guys they were incredible with their skill set. And I told him, I was like, you know what, this thing's gonna take off. Like these guys this is ridiculous. Because I just couldn't believe what I was seeing from Jai. And I remember Chappie telling me, he's like, so all the guys, Jai's good, but he's not the best one. Like there are a ton of guys that do this. Like it's a whole country full of them. And I remember the conversation, and I thought to myself, if I ever get once I get my coordinator's job, especially on the college level, I'll never have an American punter. And kind of held true to word. And I had one of his guys, Jamie Keane, and then Brad was Australian, but he didn't come from their deal. But I tell you what, it's been amazing to see what you've done, man. You and Johnny, you guys, y'all have done an incredible job, and just keep doing what you're doing, bro, because you guys are changing the game. Like you guys are making history. And I know you probably realize it, but I'm just letting you know it's happening. Like your dream, your vision, it has come true, bro. So just keep doing what you're doing. I appreciate the hell out of you guys. And I love watching your work, because you see it in these guys when they come across, man. So keep doing your thing, bro.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thanks, Thomas. All right, guys, thank you again. We recorded 90% of this. So I think we missed like the first some odd minutes when we were having some technical glitches, but the rest of it is recorded. We're going to post it on our client portal, which most of you guys have access to. Those who need access to it, who aren't our clients, but we're invited on as friends, just let me know, and I'll give you a password. You log right in, and you could watch it, review it anytime. And hopefully we'll be bringing some more things like this to you guys as well down the road. So
This is
thank you all
awesome.
again for
Thank you.
coming on. Appreciate it. And
Thank you guys.
be safe out there. Be smart.
Thanks,
Take care,
everybody.
guys.
Thanks,
See
guys.
you
Have a
guys.
good one, guys.
Thanks.
Talk to you
Be
soon.
safe, bro.
Stay safe.
See you guys. Yeah, you too.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Appreciate
See
it.
you guys. Take care, guys.